If you harbor an interest in psychology, it's likely that your suggested videos related to that topic in your feed on YouTube. Often with titles beginning with the psychology of blah, blah, blah. Now, recently, I've begun to notice a trend that perhaps you've also noticed, where there are a lot of these videos, a heck of a lot of them. For example, this one. Psychology of people who don't post their photos on social media. This account has over 2 million subscribers. Here's another one, a much more modest account. The psychology of people who don't post on social media. Here's another one, 40k subs. Psychology of people who don't post their photos on social media. All right. Oh, look, another one. The psychology of people who don't post on social media. Oh, another one. 200k subs. The psychology of people who don't post on social media. Beginning to notice a pattern here. And if you watch these videos, although they're not technically exactly the same, they follow a very similar script. And script is perhaps the apt word because no doubt they were authored by AI. And they feature a narration with an AI voice that often does its best Alain de Botton impression, if you're familiar with him, and his work with the channel School of Life. And they're basically a kind of imitation of that kind of content, where they narrate some ideas regarding a psychological topic and it's overlaid with sort of rudimentary animation, which in the case of these videos, I imagine is also produced by AI. So, what's going on here? Let's look at another one. Here's another topic. Psychology of people who don't obsess over sports. Over 160,000 subscribers. Psychology of people who don't obsess over sports. Psychology of people who don't obsess over sports. Now, a lot of these videos only cropped up in the last couple of months. So who knows if it's all the same person just running all these Slop accounts simultaneously, or if they're just ripping each other off, and that perhaps one of them did the work originally and it's just being mimicked. Hard to say, but some of them, there's a huge range in their viewership, but some of them are getting huge amounts of views. Here's another one. Feral and Free, the brutal truth about Gen X. Feral and Free, the brutal truth about Gen X. Psychology of Gen X. Psychology of Gen X. Psychology of late Gen X. So this one, for example, got over 2 million views, 7 days old. Pretty impressive. Now, is this a problem? Well, the bits I've looked at, it's not as if they're wrong about everything. They're just spouting just pure fakery. But I suppose the more general pattern I've noticed with this kind of content, other than being, again, just obviously manufactured by these LLMs, is that they all seem to follow a similar theme, which is that they will identify some ostensible issue and they will reframe it as, no, this is good, this is why this is a good thing. Or this is why this is actually a strength versus a weakness. And this is why you have this thing, and it provides maybe some comfort, or again, a reframing of something that maybe a particular person felt was a weakness within them or a problem. But no, it's actually a strength, or you're cool if you don't have friends, or you're really smart or sophisticated. It's actually a symptomatic of a strength, a good thing, positive quality. And obviously, the danger in that is that you're potentially just reinforcing potentially habits that people maybe would benefit from changing, but now they're being told that they're good, or they're a strength, something to be proud of. And therefore, this whole notion of this being psychology, it sort of bleeds into a kind of astrology rather than psychology. It's not unlike a horoscope at this point, where you're reading something on a daily basis, these horoscopes, that they will say something kind of vague that can be interpreted as applying to yourself. And then you can sort of choose to interpret it however you like. So this is not to say you shouldn't watch this stuff, but it is quite suspicious that suddenly these platforms are just being flooded with all this very similar material. And it's actually perhaps part of the reason why I decided to start making content myself, because once this AI stuff started to really gain momentum, it was clear that, you know, the cost of creating this stuff, it's so cheap and fast that inevitably the ratio of human created content versus LLM created content is going to begin to shift. And therefore, in a sense, human created content with a real person behind it is going to become more scarce and potentially more valuable and more sought after, potentially, in a sea, an ocean of this slop, which has become the apt descriptor. So I don't want to discount all this stuff. I'm sure there's perhaps something to learn from it. But I suppose I'm curious how many other people have noticed this. Clearly there are people watching it. I mean, maybe some of it's bot views and it's not all authentic engagement, but it is all quite the same, down to the kind of voices, the kind of animations, the style, And obviously the topics, they literally just use exactly the same titles. It's just copy paste. So it's up to you. This maybe relates to a broader topic I've spoken about before with people, which is that prior to this information age, information was very scarce, and you had to go somewhere to get it, like a library. And specific libraries had specific books that you couldn't get elsewhere. And specific countries or cities had specific intellectuals who, if you wanted to hear their ideas, sometimes you had to go there. Now, obviously, that's all changed. Everything is instantly accessible. And so the problem is not a paucity of information. Now the problem is that there is this tornado of noise, and the challenge is developing a quality filter to detect the signal, distinguish the signal from the noise. And that's becoming harder and harder because there's this exponential growth of expansion of information, most of which is just garbage. And so the better you can be about filtering for quality, the more time you're going to save, and the faster you're going to get or learn something useful. So that's maybe just something to keep in mind with regards to this kind of content. And if you are interested in this kind of style of content, then not that I'm a huge fan, but perhaps you'd be better off just watching a channel like School of Life, which my understanding is that at the very least, the scripts, the videos are written by actual people. So, yeah. All right, I think we can leave it there. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.